Dit is Bergkamp! Dit is Bergkamp!
Persie, ja! Ja! Ja!
Daar is hij! Ja! Ja!
Daar is Klaassen, goal!
Hello, it's podcast 62 from Football-Oranje, your home of Dutch football. I'm Michael Statham, and today I'm with special guest Paul Thomas Clay, who's a commentator from Norway, including commentating on Dutch football. He'll actually be at Rosenborg against PSV this week, one of the big ties in the Europa League involving Dutch clubs. There's also RZ against Manchester United, Feyenoord against Porto, and in the Champions League, Valencia against Ajax. We'll be talking about all of the Dutch clubs involved there, plus a look to the provisional squad ahead of the Netherlands qualifiers against Northern Ireland and Belarus, plus some Eredivisie chat and answering your questions sent in on Twitter. You're listening to us via SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube, Football Nation Radio. Make sure you hit the like button if there is one, and subscribe wherever you are. We hope you enjoy. Paul, it's really good to have you back on the Football-Oranje podcast. How are you faring?
I'm fine, actually. There's a lot of things on the plate right now. I'm after this podcast, I'm going to France or in the virtual world, going to France doing the Marseille Rennes game. But I've been busy with all my games in Holland and France and all over Europe, actually. So it's been an exciting start to the season.
Well, you're clearly a very busy man, and it's great to get you back on Football-Oranje. And I think the first thing we should start talking about on this podcast is the Valencia against Ajax Champions League match. Ajax, of course, getting that win over Lille, a 3-0 win in the Champions League first round, and Valencia beating Chelsea. Have you seen much of Valencia, Paul, in your extensive sort of commentary, and what do you make of this Spanish team?
I did watch them a bit more a couple of seasons ago because I did the La Liga commentary back then. But I've been following the start of the season, and I've watched the troubles from the outside. I think Valencia is something really. What should I say? Special in this football. It's a badly run club, but they get results every now and then, and then they're in the Champions League. So it's hard to sort of criticize them too much. But the way they sacked Marcelinho and the players' response to it tells you quite a lot. But they've gotten some good results lately, so it's going to be a difficult match for Ajax, I think.
Sure, yeah. Valencia currently sitting mid-table in La Liga, and it's always going to be a difficult game for Ajax against one of the biggest Spanish teams. Is this an opportunity, though, for Ajax to get another result? They played really well against Lille, and they showed again the qualities that we saw in last season's Champions League. Admittedly, yes, they are without De Jong, De Ligt, the sort of heartbeat of that team from last season, but they're starting to click, aren't they? This new look Ajax team.
Definitely, and I've been impressed about how they've got about their business and actually using both Alvarez and Martinez in midfield, which were brought in to cover for De Ligt, I believe, or in part at least, and shows you the flexibility of Den Haag, I think, how he manages his resources in his squad, switching from a 4-3-3 to a 4-2-3-1. More or less. I've been really impressed about how they started the season and starting to sort of find their shape with the new players.
In the Eredivisie, they've been very busy beating Fortuna Sittard and Groningen 5-0 and 2-0 respectively. However, in Europe, against Lille in particular, even though they were at home, they did give away quite a lot of chances, despite playing that Martinez-Alvarez midfield, which you were talking about. Do you still have concerns that this Ajax team might not be tight enough? I think they have come a long way, by the way, since the qualifiers of the Champions League, where they did look a little bit all over the place, for the want of a kinder word. There was a really soft middle in terms of their centre-backs, and whenever balls were put into the area, there was trouble. And do Valencia have the threats that might cause Ajax some harm?
Yeah, in abundance. I think Valencia on their day is a fantastic team. So they will really have to be on top of the game to sort of keep them at bay. I think Rodrigo scoring at Stamford Bridge, for example, Maxi Gomez that they brought in from Celta Vigo is an excellent player. They got Parejo in the midfield, Ferran Torres. I don't know if Carlos Soler will be playing, but they got a lot of quality all over, I think. But they can be heaven and they can be hell. Valencia, you never know which one you will get. So they're very much up and down. So if Ajax can be tight on the defensive end, I think they will fare well. I think they will get 1 point at least.
That's a very optimistic view of how you think Ajax will get on. I hope you're right, because Ajax certainly hold the Netherlands' best chance of getting far in Europe again this season. It's a big game for them, and this is before they play Chelsea twice next month. Do you think that this could be a sort of make or break fixture in terms of qualifying for the next round?
I think there's a lot to get from those Chelsea games. I think there's a possible 4 or 6 points in that double fixture. So I'm not putting too much into the Valencia game, but the way I saw them play against Lille, I thought they were fantastic. They weren't 3-0 up in all those in the chances created and shots on goal and stuff like that. They were quite effective actually in that game. So it's a bit flattering result with the 3-0 win, but the way they fought out that match, I think, was great to see. They rose to the occasion and they sort of put a lot more heart into it, I think, than I've seen them done in quite a few of the Eredivisie games, where it's more sort of business as usual. There's nothing special to them. They win without too much trouble, and so it's just an ordinary day at the office playing Eredivisie games. But they really showed themselves against Lille, and I think they will do that again at Mestalla.
Sure thing, yeah. I agree. Ajax have certainly been a lot more comfortable in their Eredivisie this season. Again, is that because Ajax are too strong or the others too weak? Then that's up to opinion. I think it's maybe a little bit of both. But yeah, a big fixture for Ajax, but not the only one for Dutch clubs in Europe this week. Another look at PSV then. So they are in the Europa League this week, playing away at Rosenborg, a Norwegian team. Yeah. Who better to ask than yourself?
I've actually watched more Eredivisie games than the Norwegian League this season. In Norway we play spring autumn series, so we don't play a season which starts in the autumn. We start in March and end in November. So we're almost at the end of the season actually in Norway. Rosenborg has started badly. They had quite a good run a while back, but they've reverted to the bad start, the tendencies from the bad start. Really, they weren't good yesterday against Brann from Bergen. They have problems, and I think they will have huge problems against PSV.
So you think it'll be a very comfortable evening for PSV? Who do you think will cause Rosenborg the biggest threat?
Obviously, the goal-scoring menace, MALEN. He's been fantastic this year. Of course, the pacey wingers is going to cause problems, and there are quite a few weak points at Rosenborg. So there's a lot of opportunities for PSV in that game. But then again, it's up to PSV not to underestimate Rosenborg, because they also know how to play European games and sort of bring out their best when the floodlights are on and in the European nights. They got threats themselves. So PSV must play maybe not at their very best, but they can't go easy on Rosenborg, I think.
Okay, yeah, sure. And I think we'll touch upon Daniel Marlin a little bit more later in this podcast when we talk about the Netherlands squad. Another fixture we've got to look forward to this week is Feyenoord against Porto. Let's talk a little bit more about Feyenoord. How have you found them this season? Because they've been stuttering quite a lot, haven't they? Before today, we're recording on a Sunday, by the way, if you're listening. They had only 2 wins from 7 games. At the same time, only 1 defeat. But a 5-1 win over Twente this weekend. That's quite the response from Jaap Stam's men, and a big result before the Porto game.
And it will give them a massive confidence boost, I think. As I wrote in the predictions on your website before this round, I wrote that Jaap Stam should have got more out of his players, and today they really delivered the goods. 5-1 was it in the end? 5-1 against Twente. I think it's a massive result for them. It would be a huge confidence boost ahead of next game.
However, they have got the deficiencies at the moment, haven't they, Feyenoord?
I haven't watched all their games, but I'm not sure where the main problem is really. But because they got good players in most of the positions, I think it's a lack of effort, or what should I say, mental. This is a mental thing for them, I think. They got talent, they got experience, they got speed, strength, everything they need to be a top team, but they haven't looked like a top team until today.
Agreed. They have taken a while to get going as a team under Stam, and then once I thought it was getting going, they had a hideous performance against RZ where they lost 3-0. But they did respond really well against Twente. Oh yeah, I agree. It's perhaps a mental thing with them. And it could just be that on the day, Stam said the wrong thing before he let them out onto the pitch and they lost. Let's see now if they can keep up that kind of form that they showed against Twente today, because if they can get those attacking players going, they're going to be a top 3 team again. But a difficult season awaits, I think, because Orkun Koçu, who looks so promising in midfield, he's been taken off quite a lot recently. He's been substituted off by Stam. That midfield is definitely the thing that seems to be the most inconsistent for Feyenoord. They have good attacking players, admittedly without a proper striker at the minute, with Jorgensen out injured. A decent back 4 too, which is coming along nicely, with EA developing a good partnership with Botahine. Fullbacks as well, again finding their rhythm, finding their best football. So yeah, it was a surprise to me to see Feyenoord actually stuttering at the start of this season, but maybe it is the midfield. I don't know if they quite yet know their best team.
Yeah, that's my take on it too. It's finding their best 11. So it's a matter of time before they get more consistency out of their team and get more consistent results. I think they will be a top team by the end of the season, but they haven't been one so far, and they need more than one game to sort of get them out of the let's say, slump that they're in. They need 3, 4, 5 games to sort of prove that they're all right, I think.
Yeah, agreed. They will get there eventually. As I keep holding that belief, let's see if they can keep it up then. There is one more game in the Europa League, which is AZ against Manchester United. However, we're not going to preview it on this podcast today because we actually have a special preview video, which you can find on our YouTube channel. If you're listening on other platforms such as SoundCloud, iTunes and Football Nation Radio, you know that to look on YouTube for that preview video against Manchester United, where we have a special guest there to talk all things Manchester United. The next thing we're going to talk about then on the podcast is the provisional squad for the Netherlands. There weren't a lot of surprises from Ronald Koeman on this occasion. But again, we're seeing a lack of a call-up for 2 players in particular who Koeman is definitely trying to get tied down for the Netherlands. And they are Mo Ihataren and Serginho Dest. I'm just going to come to one of our Twitter questions. I'm just going to get it on my phone here. It's from William. He asks, when should Ronald Koeman pull the trigger and call in Dest and Ihataren? Would the November window be ideal since there wouldn't be any competitive matches until the Euros? How great would the risk be of losing both of them if he waits until next summer or beyond? Now, I don't know what you think of this, Paul, how you've made of a situation involving Ihataren and Dest, but for me personally, I know it's a risk to call players up into a competitive match squad, but he's got to get these 2 tied down, and it could just be that Morocco or USA pull the heartstrings of these 2 players and take them away from the Netherlands, when I think these 2 could be crucial for the future of the Dutch.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a shame it's not done already. Either way, maybe in the case of Dest especially, because he's both actually, but Ihataren is still young. He's or even younger than Dest, 17 still, and Dest 18. But they've lost sort of originally Dutch players to their parents' homeland, like Masraoui and other players. So it's I think it's a shame that those 2 didn't get picked this time around. They could sort of be included in the squad, and if the results are going the Netherlands' way, they can substitute them in, and then they'll be tied down. It's a sort of a low risk thing to do, to pick them for a squad like against Northern Ireland and Belarus, isn't it?
Well, the game against Northern Ireland is a huge one, and one that the Dutch really need to win. But yeah, that game against Belarus, it's a lot more winnable. And if you just put them on the bench and bring them on for 5 minutes at the end, switching on a right, perhaps even putting Dest on the right wing to see out the results, I think that's worth it, just to time down.
Yeah, and it's a problem with the selection of international squads in many countries. Really, like this one from the Netherlands is. You have the same issue in other countries as well, even in Norway, with players with a let's say mixed background and playing for their parents' home country instead of the country they were born and raised in. Because of sort of a reluctance to call them up too early in a way. I think the Netherlands have lost good players that way before, and they should learn from it, and they should pick Destiny Hatren right now. I would have done so anyway. These squads contain 23 players, I believe, when they are finalized, and they can easily pick 20 players that can do the job, and they can fill up those last 3 spots with talents and players like Destiny Hatren, in case they get the chance to sub them on and not affect the results in a way.
Agreed. I agree with you. particularly when you see the likes of Kluivert still called up, Strootman, Vilhena, Harteboer. Harteboer is Dest's sort of direct rival for that spot in the Netherlands squad, and yet he's still being called up. Yeah, you might see Harteboer perhaps whittled away once the final squad comes out, but even just putting them in that provisional squad sends out a signal to both those players that Koeman really wants them. I know he can talk to them as much as he wants behind closed doors and after matches for Ajax and PSV, but it's not the same. I think if you give that signal and say you're in my squad, you have a chance of being called up, then I think that they're gonna really notice that and sit up and take notice.
Definitely, and I really don't understand why Koeman's done it that way, but it's his call, it's his job, but it's also on him if the Netherlands lose those two players, I think.
Yeah, agreed. Although we have seen in the past with Danny Blind calling up De Ligt at just 17 years old and throwing him in, and it went so wrong, didn't it? Obviously a crucial position and throwing him from the start in a vital Euro qualifier when everything was going against the Netherlands, but yeah.
That's the other extreme in a way. You shouldn't put a 17-year-old in the central position in an important game like that. But still, you can pick them up for the squad, and you can have them on the bench, and they can sort of get to know the other guys a bit and sort of feel included in the squad. So it's even if they don't get playing time, there's sort of feel some sort of form of loyalty to the other guys in the national squad. So it's about including them in the squad, not only as a player, but it's also a social thing component to this, I think.
Yeah, and one of the players we're also glad to see in the provisional squad, Daniel MALEN. We touched upon him briefly earlier. How have you made his start to the season? He's scored 8 goals in 8 games for PSV in the league, but 12 goals overall already this season. An outstanding record. Is he going to be the answer to the Netherlands in attack? What do you make of his abilities?
I think he could be sort of a new Huntelaar or De Jong for the next 10 years. He's that good a player. He could be even better maybe, and it follows the tradition of great Dutch strikers. I think being schooled by Henry at Arsenal and Bergkamp at Ajax, he's gotten quite a good education as a striker. Some of the best professors teaching him, but he's sort of he's got a lot of good things going on, and he's not extreme in a way like Mbappé is in France, or but he's very good all round. I think he's got a great set of skills, but not extreme in a way. I think just that it's unusual to have that, to be such a complete player at that young age.
I think it says a lot of the players that play around MALEN that he's scoring all of these goals. The biggest difference between MALEN last season and this season is the simple fact that he's scoring loads of goals. And yeah, the positional change that he made this summer from a winger back to a striker may well have been key.
Yeah, definitely. He's a striker. He's a central striker. Like I tried to say with his next De Jong or Huntelaar. He's not a winger, I think. At least it is not his best position. He's a goal scorer. He needs to be in the middle, and he's got great movement. He's got strength and speed, but it's the whole package that stands out with him, I think, to be such a complete player at that young age.
I'd love to see Koeman trying a sort of 2 strikers in attack MALEN perhaps with Memphis. I think he'd work really well as a duo.
Yeah, definitely. I was thinking the same when I browsed through the squad just before we started recording. I think that would be a really good, or potentially a really good partnership.
Yeah, and we'll look forward to MALEN perhaps getting a start against Northern Ireland next month for the Netherlands. One final thing then to talk about on this week's podcast, Paul, is a look to the Eredivisie. Now, normally we cover the biggest teams in the division and we look to some of the things that stand out for us in the league. But this week, let's have a little look at how the table starts at the bottom. And after 8 games, RKC Waalwijk, 8 games, 7 defeats. Fortuna Sittard, after 8 games, only 3 points. It's not looking good for those two, but also ADO Den Haag, who's currently 16th in the final relegation sort of playoff spots. We had a question actually about ADO, and Paul, I was wondering what you thought about this question, but also about the bottom 3 so far. And I've already lost the question, so not a good start there. but it was here we go, from Grant, asking what do ADO Den Haag have to do to score goals? Well, there's one thing I can say for sure, and that's having watched them lose 3-0 to Emmen the other day. They have changed their front 3 recently, haven't they? And they're not very good. Somerville's very young. He's 17 years old, coming from Feyenoord. He needs games, but it's probably not the right situation for him at ADO. And Sabiki as well, having a record low 11 touches throughout most of the game for ADO, which is pretty appalling. And Michael Kramer, who's a striker who's very tall. He scored loads of goals in the past for ADO. But yeah, he really isn't the best striker in the Dutch league. And that's their problem, isn't it? It's goals. And they clearly just don't have a lineup with much quality that can deliver goals to win games.
Definitely. And the boring question, and then the boring answer to the question that was posed to us is that they need to take the chances, and they haven't done so this far, and putting all the responsibility on a 17-year-old is nuts. I think the players who should be pulling the weight is like Kramer, as he said. I haven't been that impressed with him in the past. He has scored a few goals a few years ago, but still, then he got good service from crosses and from the midfield and the wingers, but it doesn't seem to work this season. Yeah. It's a confidence issue as well. Obviously, they've had a bad start, but they're with the 3 points next round. They will jump up for 4 places in the table potentially, and then there's another 3 in the top half. So they're in a bad situation right now, but it looks bleak when you look at the table and they are in the qualifying spots. But I think if they can get a good result the next round, then they'll can work on that and start building on the confidence from that. But it's not completely disastrous, but they need to work hard on scoring goals.
They do, and I think that their midfield is also a really weak area because they just cannot hold on to the ball and work it forwards towards their forwards. You're saying about, it's not disastrous so far, but we could be looking at something a lot worse in 5 or 6 games' time, and it would be such a shame to lose such an established Eredivisie club. I know, obviously, life is a cycle and things must happen, and ADO getting relegated might well be one of them. But you say about they haven't had a disastrous start. 2 sides that have, Fortuna and AKC, who have not had a win between them so far. And this season, the Eredivisie has 2 direct relegation places, the 2 bottom positions. Do you think that this bottom 2 might stay the same throughout the season?
From what I've seen so far, yes. It's almost expected as well, isn't it? Those 2.
I think that EK definitely are a side that will be directly relegated back to the Eredivisie, given how they've not really signed many Eredivisie quality players this summer. It was lucky that they got up from the playoffs last season. As for Fortuna, they did really well last season, but then lost their best players that performed in the Eredivisie. They've replaced them with quite a few foreign players who so far, apart from maybe 1 or 2, I haven't been impressed with. So I just can't see them turning it around, neither of these teams.
And also because the teams above those 2 at the bottom have at least from time to time given small glimpses of what they can do, and they have at least in certain games performed quite well. The likes of VVV and Emmen and let's say Pexvoll and Groningen, which are the closest teams right now, I don't think they will be relegated. It's those 2 at the bottom will stay there, I think, and it's but between those other teams that I mentioned that will be about avoiding the 16th place.
I agree with you. I think it could even stretch as far as Heracles or Heerenveen. Although a lot of these teams, whilst they're not at their best quality at the moment in the recent times, they are teams that can avoid the drop and just have that little bit of spark that will keep them up. I think one player, whilst I've got you here, Paul, on our podcast, that has stood out in the Eredivisie is a player that used to play in Norway, Chidera Ejuke, the winger. He's a Nigerian winger who played for, now how do you pronounce that team? I would say Valencia. How would you pronounce it in Norwegian?
Well, it's I can almost see the stadium from here, from my kitchen window. It's in the Oslo dialect. It's Vålerenga, which is in a clean Norwegian way of pronouncing it. It's Vålerenga. Which is, well, it's not that important to pronounce it correctly as long as I understand what you're saying. It's difficult with all the languages and pronunciations across the footballing world. I work really hard on it as a commentator, sort of get the right pronunciation. But it's difficult to be 100% on it all the time.
I think it's important to have a really good idea as a commentator, but also for me in this kind of situation on a podcast where I don't want to pronounce a player's name wrong, and I think it's really important to listen into the sort of mother tongue commentator pronouncing that player's name, and then you can replicate that because they're going to know best, but also it's more authentic to get that correct pronunciation. We are digressing slightly here, Paul. And Chidera Ejuke, what have you made of him so far? Do you think he's made up the step up well to the Eredivisie? He scored 2 goals for Heerenveen yesterday in their win against VVV Venlo.
Yeah, it seems like he's settling in quite well. 4 goals this season in total, and I think it's a step up for him, of course, going from the Norwegian league to the Dutch league, and Heerenveen is probably slightly better than the team he left. So it's a step up for him. It's not a big step, it's not a huge step, but it puts him on a bigger stage, and he's ambitious. He's just 21 years old, and he's got a lot of things, a lot of strengths. I think he's fast, and he's unpredictable in a way. He's difficult to sort of to stop for a defender, because you never know quite 100% what he's going to do in every situation. He's good. I think it's exciting prospect for Heerenveen. I don't think he will be there for too long either. If he can keep on scoring goals at this rate, he'll definitely be gone next summer.
I think that he'll be there. Well, obviously this season, he might well be there for another season after that. I believe that he wants to keep stepping up the footballing ladder, and where better place to do it than Heerenveen. Paul, thank you very much for joining me. We've discussed plenty in this podcast, from the Europa League games to ADO Den Haag to Daniel MALEN and much more besides. So, yeah, thanks for joining me, and we hope to get you back on the podcast really soon.
Thanks for having me on.
And if you are listening to us at the end of this podcast, well done for getting here. Make sure that you're liking and subscribing wherever you are. And we have plenty more coming up for you in the coming weeks and months on Football-Oranje. So stay tuned to all of our platforms. Thanks for listening.
That is back up. That is back up. Daar is hij. Ja, ja!
Daar is Klaassen. Goal!